on the clock. You should have just got a little notification there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
thanks. Thank you for agreeing to have a little chat with me. It's a pleasure to meet you, and I'm very grateful this opportunity through Zoom and FaceTime and all these new skills we're getting. So we've got to this point, and it's nice to meet face to face.
Yes, the same here.
And I was just interested on finding. I'm happy to share my perspectives quite a lot. You know, I like to talk about pain, but I'm really interested in other people's perspectives and finding out their story. And you kindly kind of offered to explain a little bit about your situation.
Yeah.
So is it okay if I fire you some questions and
yes,
answer how you want, say what you want to say, hold back anything you don't, and if it's anything you don't want to share, then we'll delete it.
Okay, that's fine.
So can I ask you your story, Jenny, around how did you come to this point then?
Right, it started 67 years ago, so it's quite a long story. The first time that I had back pain, I was 6. So obviously I can't give a lot of detail of what else was going on in my life then, because, you know, your memories from 6 years old are a bit, well, they're a long way away and very faded now. But I recall at that time I was living in the Midlands, and it was at the time of the polio virus scare. And everybody all the parents were very, very concerned about the children. So that's just the setting of the time. I recall coming in from playing outside and saying to my mother, I've got a pain in my back. What she said or what happened after that, I don't know. But I do recall that some doctors were sent out to look at me who said, no, I haven't got polio, just rest and it will go away, which it did. But I always take that as the starting point of my history of back pain. I spoke to my brother about it, who's since passed, so I can't refer to him again. He said, yes, 3 doctors came out to see you, and I distinctly remember it's 2. So it's very vague. Then I don't recall having any other back pain until I was in my teenage years. And I can remember saying to people, oh, I get back pain every 6 to 9 months. And I'd been to GPs, and the idea then was that you went to bed and rested for 2 weeks, and after 6 weeks, you'd be okay. And that's how it went on. I had several instances after that I can remember quite well as I got older. I remember once in the summer holidays, I had a job in a shop, and I had to go and have time off from there. Just after we were married and we'd got our first rented property, I can remember taking some cakes out of the oven, and I had a problem there. I remember just before my dad died in 1973, I had a problem then. Again, it was still the 2 weeks rest, and then 4 weeks and you were back on your feet again. And then in 1977, I slipped down while I was playing with my twins. Whether that had anything to do with it, I really don't know. And I thought, oh, here we go with another 6 weeks. But that 6 weeks actually turned into 10 years before I was clear of it. And it eventually cleared when I went into hospital, met a physiotherapist who said, oh, I can see exactly what's wrong with you. It's your lordosis. So that was a new one. I'm going to give you these exercises, and you can go home and you keep coming back in here, and I'll keep on checking you. And yes, you're doing fine. Why don't you start now walking outside the house and around the house? And I did that, and it cleared. And from 1988 onwards, I had very little problem with it. I didn't have the 6 months recurring pain. It was just very random and passed without me taking bed rest. So I was rather surprised in 2013 when I started to get the back pain. And I thought, well, 6 weeks, just be a bit careful and we'll be all right again. But it never passed, and it got worse. And then I was in bed and all sorts of treatments followed. I've been doing curable work for about 3 years now. Followed Dan Buglio, Nicole Sachs, Alan Gordon, did various things. And I don't have the back pain now. But what it's left me with is terrible tension and a twist in the top of my spine, and my pelvis is tilted. So in a nutshell, there we go.
So that pattern's fascinating, isn't it? When you look back and you can see that you almost could predict how frequently you get the pain at the start. You could predict how long each episode would take to resolve, and whether, no matter what you did. And then you got some specific help when you saw the physio after that 10-year episode. And I suppose your understanding of it's evolved, rather than just physically doing things to help yourself, to maybe looking at some of the broader perspective and other things. And so are you without pain now?
Virtually. Sometimes I get just a little bit of what I call a burst across the bottom of my back, but I can ignore it now. And it's true. You ignore it and it's not there anymore.
And what did you believe about your pain?
I believed that there was something wrong deep in my spine that they weren't seeing. I had MRIs and scans and x-rays and myelograms and all sorts, and was very frustrated that these ignorant doctors couldn't see what it was. But very grateful to them now, because I've never had any treatment as such, apart from when they sent me to the neurologist and he put me on Lyrica, which really was one of the worst things that he could have done for me. Mm-hmm. But I'm off that now.
Yeah, a lot of the pain medications or medications really just are blocking a signal that your body's trying to give you. Yeah. It's about our interpretation, isn't it? How we interpret it. And if we interpret it with fear or frustration or any other kind of negative emotion, it tends to magnify it.
What impressed me so much about your book, what it made me think, the path it sent me down, is that, and I've got a wonderful example of it. When I started doing curable and doing the journaling, I was always writing about the fact that I thought my mother didn't supervise me enough when I was very small. I mean, life was very different then, and we lived in villages, and the children did used to wander about without the parents there with them. But when I went back and I realised that actually from the age of 2, I was wandering off and actually tried to walk across a pond that had been drained at one point. And it was only the fact that somebody heard me and my little friend screaming that we ever got out of it. And I went back and I kept thinking about this, and I kept hearing my mother's voice and trying to figure out what was going on and what was happening. And I realised every time I was listening to her, I could hear her saying to me, now I've told you, you're not to do this. If you do this, you're going to end up in a right mess. You're going to this and you're going to that and you're going to something else. And the prime example of that, which I remember, because I don't remember all the other things, but I do remember her saying to me from a very small child, if you go in that puddle, you can drown. You can drown in 6 inches of water. If you fall face down, there'll be nobody there to pick you up if you're on your own. When I was a bit older, well, of course you can't go to the swimming pool. You can't swim. The other children can swim. If you go in that pool, there'll be nobody there. If they don't see you, there'll be nobody there to pull you out. You won't be able to breathe when you're under that water. And then that went on even further to the fact that I never learned to swim until I was 50. And I went to swimming lessons with somebody I could trust and realized I was like a cork in a champagne bottle. And I bob on the water and I can't get underneath the water because I'm so buoyant. But if I don't go regularly, I lose that. And this fear of deep water comes back to the point where I cannot move my arms and legs. I am absolutely frozen with fear. I can overcome it, and I do overcome it, and I love the water and I love going swimming, but I know that it's still there. And I think that's the way my mother supervised me. You can go off and you can do what you like, but I'm sending the fear with you. And I'm just wondering if that's the root cause of what goes on with me.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Jenny, I don't know if you're able to just wiggle your camera a little bit, just so you're more center screen at all. Oh, yeah, that's better. That's better. Yeah, you were just a little bit off to one side. It's fascinating how those...
I can't hear you now. Oh. Hang on, let me... If I've moved something and turned you down. Oh, I'm sorry about that.
That's all right. I've probably triggered it by asking you to move.
Yes, it was.
You're back on?
Yes, that's fine. I can hear you. Yeah, that's fine.
It's fascinating how those pathways are unconscious. And sometimes we can't find them when we look for them. But it's knowing that there's something driving our behaviours. Right?
Yes.
And I think my dad said to me, he passed away a couple of years ago, my dad, but he did say to me, the only thing you get from looking back, son, is a stiff neck. So we can really force and feel frustrated about, but I don't subscribe to that. I know that can help some people, and it's interesting to understand our journey, but if you change the habits going forward, like you did, it means that you can override them, right? Not in a frustrating way. They'll always be there. We'll always remember how to fall off a bike. We'll always remember what it's like, and that's there forever because it has to be.
Yeah.
Sometimes the emotional charge is too strong to ever let us get back on the bike, and it feels really scary to get back on the bike. But once we've enjoyed the bike a little while and had some fun with our friends, the fear fades and it gets swaps from fear to excitement. That transition's invisible. But it's palpable when you experience it. And then you think, I can't believe I was so scared of that thing. Yeah. But it means that some pathways you have to keep investing in forever.
Yeah.
And people are frustrated by that, but because they're so used to not looking after themselves. And so you and I'm 51, you're a shade older than me, but we both have to brush our teeth every day for the rest of our life, probably twice a day. Have to. And part of your self-care routine, whether it's swimming and addressing the concerns that pop up, it's very similar with people who've had persistent pain. We can fall back into those patterns. If we don't have to have another injury, we could have a similar injury, but we could have the same circumstances emotionally and psychologically that were present when our pain came before, and that can be the trigger. And we can't stop those things happening in the first place, but we can recognize the early signs of them. If it was the slow burn stress, the overload, the kind of invisible things that we maybe put up with in the past that we probably don't allow now. It's that boundary setting, isn't it? And knowing what we need to keep ourselves healthy.
Yeah.
And what was the shift then? Because you've kind of worked lots out. What was the shift for you? You think, oh my gosh, I get it.
I think it was linking up with the swimming and realizing what part the mind could play in it all. Because there's, long ago, people who said it's all in her head. And that meant, actually, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just imagining it and telling people that. But once you realize that the power that there is there, it makes you, I was quite desperate. I remember writing to my friend in Holland saying, I feel I've just given up hope. And she wrote back and said, no, you mustn't do that. And I thought, no, I mustn't do that. And I sort of built from there. And I think also when I came off the Lyrica, I had 12 months I couldn't sit up. Now, I know that probably sounds crazy to anybody who who's never been through it. But if I sat up, my legs would kick out. I would need to cross my legs. My back would tighten. I would go this way and that way. And in the end, the only way I could get any relief from it was to lie down. And couldn't lie down for the rest of my life. So it was a matter of, okay, I'm going to get up again in a minute. I'm just giving you warning. I am going to get up and I am going to sit up and I'm going to count to 50. And I would sit up and I would count to 50. And whether I needed to lie down again or not, didn't matter. I would lie down and then I'd say, that was great. I'm going to do that again. I'm going to get up and count to 75. And I built up like that until I could get rid of it. And wow. it took nearly 12 months to get rid of it.
Well, that's incredible, though. You're an incredibly strong lady. Lots of people, it's a downward spiral for a lot of people. And we desperately look for others to help us. And I have a patient, he spent £30,000 over the last 16 years, £30,000, and it's investing all he has in somebody else helping him, and none of it will give him the answer. And,
no, I found it difficult to explain that to my family, but they got it in the end.
Yeah, it comes from within.
Yes, they tended to say, but you're not helping yourself. You won't go to the doctor and you won't go to the hospital and you won't do this, that, or something else. No, I just need to push all that away and I just need to concentrate on me, myself.
And what's your routine now? What do you do? I know you brush your teeth every day, but what do you do for that self-care? What's your pattern of behaviour now?
Well, my pattern of behaviour, I suppose, is that I do all the things I enjoy, and I enjoy doing them. I mean, we've all been locked down, and I know a lot of people have found it very difficult and been quite miserable. But actually, for me, it didn't make a tremendous amount of difference, because I'd been in situations for so long where I couldn't actually do what I wanted. And I made the best of what I could do. And that's what I continued to do through lockdown. And we've got a big garden. We've got beautiful flowers in it. My husband loves gardening. We enjoy the plants. We've got a pond. We've got fish in. We go out there. We sit, we talk. I do a lot of sewing. I do a lot of stitching. I do a lot of reading. I write poetry now and again. And I just enjoy things. I live in Exmouth in Devon, which is a holiday area. It's a beautiful area. There's plenty of places to get in the car and go and see and just be,
It's so succinct. It sounds nice listening to how you describe those things. A lot of times I think patients overthink what they should do, and they have to do a certain exercise. And I think Alan Gordon talks about like outcome dependence. If they do that thing, it hasn't worked. So they're almost like not enjoying the experience. They're just doing it with a purpose to see if it helps them. Yeah. And that's a difficult place to start. And it simply emphasizes people's frustration, I think. But as soon as you can do something you love or be with someone you love, and without being codependent to that, just and simply enjoying their presence. But essentially it's doing what you love that you've just described there. It's such a powerful tilt in the opposite direction to the one that someone experiences when they're in pain, I think, isn't it? And at the bottom corner of my assessment sheet, after you've taken people's information, is kind of hobbies and sports or this, that, or the other. And often it's blank. I say, what do you do for you? And someone will say, well, I haven't got time. I've got the kids and I'm working. And I used to like running, but I don't have time. And I've put on a bit of weight and I feel bad about that. And the gap, there's just a big gap in that bottom right-hand corner. And we're all potentially guilty of that as our lives get busier. And yet, as in childhood, our life was just all in that bottom right-hand corner.
Yeah.
We just did what we loved. And if we didn't like it, we didn't do it.
No, it's true. I forgot my 4 grandchildren. Yeah, they're great as well.
Yeah, because being with other people is that part of connection that helps too.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are too dependent on others.
Yes.
That connection.
I also have the problem now where my husband, he keeps doing things, and I'm quite capable of doing that for myself, and he just forgets.
That's something that that's like a boundary setting, isn't it? It's a boundary.
Yes.
There's times you needed his help. There's times that, I make help of people, and there's comfort in that. There's comfort, and there's a danger there, though, isn't there, that we get the gain, a thing called secondary gains, where you're actually getting attention through your pain. And we've all experienced that as children. Yes. We've all pulled a face and looked sad to get a hug, but it's no different whether you're 50, 60, 70, and it's actually something that you need to, no, I'm okay.
Yeah. I'm always saying that with them.
And that person has to kind of recognize their own needs to do for others themselves. And if you're not doing that, they see that as rejection. It's a very complex thing, isn't it? So we've got to be compassionate in our kind of boundary. It's almost, no, I'm okay, rather than no. Sometimes it has to be no. Yeah. But the hardest person to say no to us sometimes is ourselves, isn't it? But
yes.
You sound like we've got a lovely balance, Jenny.
Yes, it's certainly a lot better than it was. And whilst I've got goals of, what I'd like to achieve, I haven't got sort of any expectations. I just go along with it. I find that that's the best way. I do a lot of meditating, which I enjoy, and I use Insight Timer, and they've got lots of sort of little courses on there, and I'm always interested to hear what other people say.
Yeah, and having that open mind is such an opportunity for anybody who's experienced pain. And you've just said that your experience has been back. It was 10 years, but you could plot that history a long time. The beauty is we always have the opportunity to relay these pathways, irrespective of age, and so there's always opportunity. It doesn't matter how long someone's had pain. You're a great example that we can do it, can't we?
I think you can never say I've tried everything. I did think that at one point. Where on earth am I going to go now? I've tried this, and I've been to the hospital and the doctor and the physio and the hydrotherapy and everything else. What on earth am I going to do? I mean, that must have been 5 or 6 years ago I said that, and goodness me, look how much I found in the next 5 or 6 years, and there's always something else, I think, that can help you and build on what you're achieving.
Yeah, and the structures that you might have thought was at fault, you might at some point you might have said it was your age or your wear and tear or your degeneration or the scoliosis or all those things are there now.
Yes,
those things are there now.
They're a nuisance now. I find them a nuisance because I can't get the rhythm of walking because I'm pulled to one side. Mm-hmm. I can't, and my mind now says to me that pain isn't there in your back, but you still can't get the rhythm of walking. But when I looked at Dan Buglio's site, his back looked in a very similar shape to mine.
Oh, I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, and he didn't do anything special to get it back. I mean, it made its own way there. Yes. While I didn't notice. So it could make its way back is the way I look at it.
Yeah, well, just listen to that little sentence you said about it. I'm left with this tension right at the start of this call. I'm left with this tension, and that tension, you've linked it to structural and the structural changes you have. And as you refer back to that now, you say that I have got those structural changes and they're a nuisance. They're a nuisance. Well, you're lucky to be here and have those structural changes. It's a blessing, isn't it, to be here and with them?
Yes. Yes, it is.
So you could see them as a nuisance and think, gosh, how lucky am I to be here with them?
Look how much I can still do.
What are these? Look at these curves I've got in my spine. Some people would love to be as curvy.
Yes. I haven't met them yet.
But I bet we could find somebody the same height, the same weight, the same age, the same degeneration and beauty, who doesn't have the nuisance perception of their body. Mm. I think we could find someone, and so we've all got a bit more work to do.
Yes.
Maybe it's a reminder that we haven't finished.
Yes, I'm sure it is.
Do you need that nuisance? Do you need that tension to keep reminding you to look after yourself? Or could you look after yourself without that nuisance sensation?
Oh, I definitely could.
Yeah.
I've
So
dialed it in.
So maybe you have to prove to yourself that you can look after it and change the perception of nuisance. There's something about it that makes you define it as a nuisance.
Yes.
Something about it and
because it's holding me back.
Yeah. And maybe the pain in your life has always come when it looked like you were doing too much. It looked like.
Do you know, I think that's true. Yeah, I think that's true.
Like this could be too much for us based on what we've got. We've got these two twins. Husband's at work and she's got all this to do and she's got this in her mind. Give her the pain, lads. Give her the pain again. Yeah, but she hasn't done anything. She's only bent over. Yeah, give her it for 10 years.
Yeah.
I'm laughing. I'm making a parody, but can you see how?
Yeah.
Pain is a blessing. And yet we have to understand it. If you see that as a nuisance, if you see that attention as a nuisance, it's like a dog under the bed and a thunderstorm. I heard this.
Yeah.
And if you point the dog and said you're a nuisance, you're an absolute nuisance. What would the dog do?
Yeah. Yeah, we know, don't we?
Probably bite you. If you got so mad at it, it would probably bite you.
Yeah.
If you dragged it by the collar and pulled it out, it would just jump back. But if you sit with it, or if you're kind to it, or you listen to it, or you just sit and breathe with it, or you stroke the dog, and you show it that you're okay with that tension, or that it's no more a nuisance than a wrinkle on your face, or an old, or my one leg that's shorter than another, or an old appendix. It's just the body's telling you in a way that it says, are you sure it's safe to go as much as you want to go? And if you do it calmly and consistently and compassionately to yourself, you might find you get rid of that nuisance.
Yeah. Yes, I'll think that when I go shopping.
Catch yourself. First of all, you've got to catch it, because I've caught it twice.
Yeah.
I've got this tension at the end. You said it's a nuisance.
Yeah.
A nuisance. It's an aside. It's just something to think about. Before I let you go, Jenny, could I ask you, there's other people in this, it's only a small group, but it's a nice group, and it's a nice group where I'm not necessarily talking about pain, because there's lots of groups to do that. And people are really looking for support. So if you could say something to someone, if you could go back to talk to yourself when you had those twins, or the time when you couldn't see your way out, what would you say for someone who else is in that situation? They might hear your success. What might you say to them?
I would probably say, based on my own experience, calm down. Because I know when this first started, I couldn't sleep. I mean, the thoughts in my head were like a steam train going through, and they were all so negative. And it wasn't until I could find something positive that I could start to build. So I would say just try to be calm and believe that things can turn round.
And they can turn around, can't they? It doesn't matter how painful our experiences have been. We can recover, can't we? Which is such a nice perspective now, because I didn't understand this after 20 years as a physio. I thought people have to live with it, and it's, the last 4 years I've seen amazing changes. And the more you look, the more you see.
Yeah.
The more you see. Yes. But it's been lovely chatting to you. I'm very grateful for your time. It's a fascinating story. Right. Fascinating story. And is there anything you want to ask me before we disappear?
No, I picked most of it up in your book, to be honest, which I study. I just delve into it randomly, and I just give a little bit of thought. It's part of the self-care, I suppose, that it's just a time when I listen to what you've said and I see, does that apply to me, and how does it apply to me? I'll take that on board. Yes, I keep using your book.
Thank you. Well, it's lovely to speak to you, Jenny. I hope we stay in touch anyway. You're in the group and you might see my musings, but anything you feel you want to share, please do, because you've got a fascinating outlook on it and a successful outlook. And I think that I still have work to do. I'm not in pain now. I'm lucky, very blessed to have a nice balanced family like it sounds like you have. And it comes for free when you get it like that. But if we lose that connection in any way, or we overload ourselves because we follow these behaviors, then we're all at risk of it. It doesn't mean you should fear going back to that point. We just have to keep attending, don't we? And if you feel you have a little bit of work to do, then that's okay too, because it makes the journey enjoyable when there's a bit of a challenge, doesn't it?
Yes, I like a challenge.
Well, I wish you all the best, Jenny. Have a lovely summer, and I'll maybe speak to you again another time.
Yeah, lovely. We'd like that. Thank you very much.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.